Welcome to Churros and Chai.
The best spot for odd combinations
And spicier conversations.
Speaking of spicy conversations, today's hot take is when should you let your kids start dating? So, your parents definitely had a very different idea of this than my parents, so you probably also do. I think for me, I don't know. I feel like it also depends on how you define dating. Because, like, if it's like, oh, a boyfriend, but like, boyfriend doesn't really mean the same thing in middle school as it does in elementary school, as it does in high school.
Yeah.
So it's also, but I think for me, it's like when the feelings are there, like, it should be allowed. It should just be like talked about. But your face is telling me no.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't fully given it that much thought, but I would say definitely not until like 15, 16 years old.
15, 16.
Yeah. I mean, I've told you this before. I didn't even hold a boy's hand until college, ladies and gentlemen.
That just hurts my soul.
But who got straight A's? Okay, then. Who had their head on their shoulders?
But can you like trace it straight back to that? Like, if you would have held a hand, they're like homeless. Like, it's just like that would have ruined everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Straight to jail.
Straight to jail. That's rough, man. Like, holding a hand, I feel like it's just all part of a kid's life, you know, like, obviously with boundaries and all that stuff, but like, you know, talking it out, making sure they understand. But I would say 12.
Okay.
You gotta have a boyfriend, little girlfriend, just maybe holding hands.
Middle schoolers are doing wild things these days.
Yeah, I know, but like I said, within reason. But you know, with parental guidance.
Yeah,
12.
I would say I don't know. I don't think I would allow. I mean, we're in this together, so we're gonna have to negotiate. But I don't know. I would feel comfortable with my kid going on a first date at like 15, 16, I think.
What if it's okay? All right. You know what? That's not too bad.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it
Comment
out.
down below. When would you let your kid date? If somebody says like 30, I don't believe you. If somebody says like 6, chill out. But within reason, let us know what you think. All right.
Yeah.
All right, back to the show. Today's topic is relationship culture shock.
But first, mind meld. Okay, so do you want to explain the game to people who don't know?
Yeah, I mean, we call it mind meld. It's basically we both say a word randomly, and we're trying to get closer and closer each time we say the word until we get to the same word. And the sooner you do it or the less words you do it in, the better. So,
Okay. All right. Okay, you ready? 3, 2, 1.
Microphone.
Podcast. Okay, that was actually pretty close.
I feel like it's on theme. Like, we're pretty much there.
Okay, podcast and microphone.
Yeah, but then okay. All right, we gotta go faster.
Yeah, we gotta go faster. Okay. I'm scared.
Okay, let's go.
1, 2, 3. Sound. Oh!
Let's go. 2 and done. Oh, that was great.
Okay, yeah, that was
awesome,
good. That was
awesome.
easy. Okay,
Yeah,
it actually takes us a lot longer.
It took like 30 minutes. So we
didn't
talk about that.
Yeah, we didn't plan this either. Oh wow, my sound's really loud compared to yours. I think I'm just holding my loud.
Hello.
I'm just a loud person.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so I'm just gonna take it down just a bit. Sorry if I've been blowing everyone's eardrums out. Okay. But yeah, that was easy. But like, let's get into the topic of conversation. So we want to talk about.
Yeah, so basically it's kind of like how really different we are and our lives have been. And like, you would think that like common knowledge would tell you like, oh, like, you know, if your couple should be somebody that's really similar to you, or like you have like all of these things in common, but nobody talks about the differences.
Yeah.
And I feel like that makes a difference, I guess.
Yeah,
Like,
the differences make a difference.
yeah, no shit. But I think our relationship has shown us that really, really matters. And it can be really good and like spices things up, funnily enough.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
you had a very different childhood than I did, a very different like upbringing. So
Yes, I am Indian, and you are.
I'm Dominican,
He's Dominican.
as well as many other things, but mostly Dominican.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met another Indian Dominican couple. Have you?
Maybe. I didn't inquire, but I think so.
Like even in your personal life or online?
Yeah, I think in my in DR last time I went to Dominican Republic, I
Uh-huh.
think so, but I'm not sure because I didn't ask them. But she looked pretty Indian, but I don't know.
She
Is
looked
that
pretty
look
Indian.
the hard part is that Dominicans literally look like so many different people around the world. Like
Yeah, it's true.
there's blue-eyed, blonde-haired Dominicans. There's like super dark skin, like curly-haired. There's all types of different like looks, so it's
Yeah.
hard to tell. But I think so.
Okay.
But
Well,
it's rare. It's definitely rare.
right. It's
Definitely
rare, and it's
Definitely
definitely
rare.
brought some interesting conversation, some
Oh yeah,
spice to our relationship,
and
just like
perspective too.
and perspective.
Yeah.
Yes, in so many different ways. So we want to get into all of that, and then, I guess, tell me about your childhood. Let's start. Let's start from there. Let's talk about what Dominican childhood is like, Dominican culture is like, what your parents were like, and then I'll talk about what mine were like.
Yeah, I think my parents were a little bit different
Yeah.
than like many Dominican parents. Like I feel
Mhm.
like the stereotypical Dominican parent is a certain way, but I feel like my upbringing in particular, because I mean I was born here. I wasn't born in DR. So I had so many different influences. And so did my parents. Like my parents were both like, very like hardworking, intelligent kind of professionals. Um, and I'm the like I have older brothers. Like I was their third kid, so like I think my childhood was a lot more even-handed. Like there was a lot of structure, but at the same time, like they kind of blended the traditional American parenting with like more American elements and like just by fact of growing up here. Like I was just very free to do a lot of things. Like they weren't by any means like free range parenting or anything like that, but like, it was kind of that kind of like, oh, come back when the street lights turn on kind of lifestyle
Mhm.
until yeah, and in high school, it was in New York City, so I was taking the train by myself all over the place,
Yeah.
going to friends' houses. I was pretty much on my own as an adolescent, just out in the world.
That's
Um,
so crazy to me. Like that
yeah.
really is like blows my mind. I
Hmm.
could never imagine taking a subway at like 12 years old.
Yeah.
I think the first time I took a subway was literally when I was had my first job as an adult. I took the subway to New York City to go to my job.
I think
But
even before 12, I'd taken the subway by myself.
yeah, that
Yeah.
must come with a lot of like pros of like confidence
With
and
11.
building character. For you want like New York.
That's a word for it. I mean, I don't know if you call it character or just danger,
Yeah, but like,
but
what were like what did you gain from having a very freeing but like independent childhood like that? But then what were like the drawbacks of it, I guess, in hindsight?
yeah, I mean, I think it definitely gave me confidence. I learned how to like figure things out,
Hmm.
how to deal with like, emergency situations or like, tough situations. But in that, there was also obviously a lot of stumbles. There was also like a lack of direction and structure in certain ways. Like I mean, I at any time could just not go to school. Like, what I'm saying?
You
If
mean
I,
because you didn't want to?
I'm the one taking the train. Like, I mean, sure, they might call my mom, but like, I also filled out a lot of my own forms. I could have put a wrong
Gosh,
number if I
this
wanted
is
to.
what I'm talking
Like,
about. This is what I'm talking about. Like that's
yeah.
so wild
I
to me.
mean,
I couldn't even fathom doing something like that. I was such a goody
I
two
did.
shoes.
I didn't. Well, I did it a couple times, but most of the time I didn't do that. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? But I was like, the it was a decision. It was up to me, right? If your
Yeah.
parents pick you up and drop you off in the school door,
Right.
like that's not even a consideration. But then like with that comes issues. Like there were times where if plans changed, like there were times I got lost on the subway. There like I had to deal with city life and not in good neighborhoods. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
well, one time, twice, one time, pretty much. I was taking the train and on the way to my mom, like I got robbed and jumped, like, and I was like 14. You know what I mean? So like, it's not great.
Yeah,
Like sure,
yeah.
like I know how to use the subway, but obviously there's difficulties. But at the same time, even situations like that, I think taught me a lot.
Do you think in hindsight though it was a net positive or a net negative experience that you had so much free reign as a child?
Yeah, I feel like that's one of those things where it's easy to fall on one side or the other,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's that simple. Like I think it's both.
Mm.
And I think I can only see it from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
but I know there were tons of lessons that I learned and that transferred over and in many situations like helped a lot later in life that I went through those things. But I mean, I'm sure you could say the same thing, you know? So like
Yeah.
it's easy to kind of like judge it one way or the other based on your experience. But I think that's the whole point. You know, like that's kind of the whole point of
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
Like I think it had a lot of good and a lot of bad. And it's about how you use those things, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you like talk about your childhood.
There's this quote that my therapist told me that's like, I mean, I think everyone can kind of relate to this, but like, given who you are now, is it because of your childhood or is it despite your childhood?
Yeah.
I think about that a lot because I had a very different experience from what he had. So for context, I'm Indian and I was born in India. I came here when I was like 3 years old. And then I grew up in South Jersey, and I had a very, very sheltered upbringing. So my parents were very strict. It was, in a sense, stereotypical Indian, where it was like very. I mean, I'm not. Look, I think we're gonna be talking a lot in the future about how we're very actually atypical for our cultures too. But like, it is stereotypical in the sense that like they really cared about working hard. They really cared about succeeding. They really cared about my academics. It was a straight A's or nothing. It was like absolutely like hard work, discipline. I wasn't allowed to talk to boys, think about boys, anything like that. Even like friends, like it wasn't like, oh, just go out and come home when the sun's down. It was, whose parent is it? Let me like basically interview the parent. What kind of house do they live in? Do they have siblings? How many siblings? Which parents are going to be home? What are you guys doing? It was a very, and even then it was still a lot of anxiety around that kind of social life. And I went to a private school on top of that. Like I grew up in the suburbs. He grew up in New York City. Very different. I never even took public transportation until I think I was in college, let alone like the subway in New York City. So it was very sheltered in that sense. And then I think, I don't know, it's impacted me in so many ways. I feel like when I finally left home and I went to college, I realized like, oh wow, there's like a whole world out here, and there's like people, there's so many different types of people. Like, and I remember like feeling like I didn't know how to do a lot of things. Like I didn't know like some basic things, like taking a bus by yourself. Like I was really scared to like just take a bus by myself, or I was really scared to like, I don't know, just go up and like talk to someone, or even like I went to a big school, so I literally had to like cross rivers and like probably ask people for directions. And you growing up in New York City, you probably like were super comfortable with that. We're just like talking to people, ordering a sandwich at the bodega, just doing stuff like
Listen,
that.
at the bodega, you gotta listen.
Fight for your life.
You can't come up with nervous energy. They smell it. They smell the fear,
New
and
Yorkers
they
smell
attack.
fear.
Okay.
That's so true. I remember the first time I was in a New York City bodega. It's like if you don't speak fast enough and loud enough, they're like next, next. Like they literally will not
Listen, people
acknowledge
got
you.
places to be. I'm
I
like,
remember thinking New Yorkers were so mean because I came from a very like small town suburban life where it was like slow and like quiet, and like everyone was like very polite to each other. And like even in my school, like we had such different schooling experiences where like
very.
I like there were no fights at my school. I went to a private school, and like even like raising your voice at another student was like red flag, like your parents were called in. And like meanwhile there were like fist fights happening at your school.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And anyway, what were we talking about? Like how it's positive and
Yeah,
negatives
like
of
like
that, right?
basically like yeah, like nowadays, like
Mhm.
how do you feel like what did you get from that?
Mhm.
Like what are you still using or even still dealing with if it's a negative thing? Like cuz I feel like for me like I do feel like I'm I'm okay if you like drop me in most places. Like I'll figure it out. Like it's
Yeah.
fine. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If I got to go deal with somebody or talk to somebody or even like probably in most dangerous places like I'll figure it out. Like I'll be okay. Like but when it comes to like very quote unquote normal
Mhm.
everyday things that are about structure or are about like something like even like I don't know doing taxes or because I was a kid that never did homework, even if I knew the stuff, like it was just really hard. Also, I mean, I don't know, that could just be some mental stuff. But not having that kind of like outside pressure
Mhm.
to always be doing the right thing and just kind of figuring it out. It makes you self-sufficient, but then you don't have that internal like scaffold to follow all the time, and like adhering to a structure, I feel like is more difficult for me. And I don't know if that's necessarily because of my childhood or how I grew up, or if it's just something that's part of me. But I have always felt that like fitting into like this pre-planned structure where things are laid out for you. Like I feel like some people like probably you find a lot of comfort in that. Like I know exactly what I have to do, and I'll just do it. And like for me, it feels restrictive because it was always like, no, I'm gonna figure out what to do, and I'm gonna do what makes sense for me.
Yeah.
You know, even when it comes to friends, relationships, jobs, like whatever.
Right.
Like
There's
I
no
always
like rule book that you specifically
exactly
follow. It's like
right.
I'm gonna make the rule
Well,
book.
I make it. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
I feel like there's so much confidence from that. That's like, actually, I'm gonna do things my own way, and you're gonna like build your own character, and like you're gonna create your own path in the world. Where it was for me, it was like almost like the path was kind of made for me. And it's like there was so many like social, academic, like it was a handbook for everything, and I had to follow the rules, and like the rules are very strict. And I think the pros of that is, as an adult now, like I am really good with discipline and motivation and getting things done, and like kind of just staying in line, like doing, like I was a really good student because of that. Even when my parents in college, when my parents' pressure wasn't so immediate, like I was very on top of my stuff because I already had internalized that type of like be on it, succeed, excel, all that type of stuff. But then I think the cons of that is like being too linear and like not necessarily thinking for myself, and like not having the confidence of like, you can drop me anywhere and I'll figure it out, because like it's like you can drop me anywhere and like I'll follow the handbook. If you
Hey, you could give me any handbook.
Any handbook, I'll memorize it back.
That's true though.
I'm not even
That's
joking. I was
true.
literally the person in school that, you guys know the school handbooks,
The
like
code of conduct.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I hated those.
Excuse me. Rule number 23 says you are not allowed to wear more than 3 fingers of straps on your shoulders for girls. So, or like, yeah, your skirts have to be like finger length. Like I would check myself. And
Oh God.
yeah, I would pull up the rule book. I actually like really like followed that. I was such a good noodle. I was such a good noodle, and I pride myself in that.
My school had a uniform. I would purposely take detention because I didn't want to wear shoes.
Wait, shoes?
Yeah. We couldn't wear sneakers at my school.
So you just wouldn't wear shoes?
No. I wouldn't wear like dress shoes.
Oh, I thought you meant you were just like, no.
I'm barefoot, baby. No, I'm not that crazy.
Okay.
I'm walking on New York City sidewalks barefoot. I'm not trying to die, okay?
I think we're jamming everyone's earphones.
Oh, you
Comment.
think so?
Yes, give us a comment if we're like being really loud.
Yeah, we'll adjust.
We're looking at the
That's fine.
recording sounds, and it's just like glaring. But okay.
What was that? Oh yeah, so yeah, like I would wear sneakers even though it wasn't allowed, knowing I would get like an hour of detention every time I did it. But I was just like, I don't want to be uncomfortable. It was 8 hours of discomfort versus 1 in my head. So like I just did the math. I'm like, okay, like
Oh my
God. It was rush hour when I got out of school anyway. So
Yeah.
taking the train was annoying, right? And I would meet my mom, and I would have to wait for her for like an hour either way.
Yeah.
So I get to wear my comfortable sneakers. Sure, I get in trouble when I walk in and they sign me up for detention at the end of the day for an hour, but I saved the commute
Yeah.
in rush hour, or at least a
Yeah,
little lighter than normal rush hour because it's a little later, and I'm chilling.
I feel like I feel like that's kind of badass. Like that, those are very calculated decisions for a 12-year-old to be making. Being like 1 hour detention isn't as bad. You're just,
Well,
bro said.
I mean,
I'm doing the math. I make it make sense.
the first time it wasn't on purpose. The first time I just tried to get away with it and I got caught.
Yeah.
And then I sat through the detention. I was like, this isn't that bad. You know, so I was like, I'm gonna do it again tomorrow.
That's crazy. I couldn't even dream of doing something like that. I was just, I really wanted to follow the rules. I really didn't want to be a bad kid.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's also messed me up in other ways, where like now I have to really force myself to like think for myself and make my own decisions, because I always like kind of like look to others to like, or at least especially when I first graduated college. Now I'm better at it, but when I first graduated college, it was like, no, there's no handbook. Like in school, there's literally a syllabus. There's literally a path to like succeeding, and you get an A and that means you did good, or you get a B and that means you did average or whatever. And like now that you're just out in the world, and I was like, wait, no one's gonna like, what? How do you succeed? What's the book? Like someone tell me the rules. And like, I just had to like learn to think for myself. just navigate life and stumble and like make my own mistakes, which I think is to my detriment in a way, because like you started doing that so much earlier on. So like you already know yourself so well. Like you know what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are. Like you've been through a lot of what is the saying?
Trial and error.
Trial and error as a child. So like now you like know how the world works back like the back of your hand. In
I wouldn't
some
say
ways.
that.
But like in a lot of like common situations that I would kind of be navigating for the first time, like taking public transportation or something like that.
I think that's part of the whole deal though. Like, because I feel like for me, I can survive.
Yeah.
Right? Like I know I'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like when you're really comfortable in a rules and structure based environment, you can assimilate to that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, and at least in modern society, like I feel like that's, to me, in some ways, is way better, because like all you have to do is learn the rules, right? Like for me, it's hard to follow anybody else's like sense like of order, right? Like because I'm just trying to get by. I'm just trying to survive. Like I'll figure out the rules, but like I'll figure out the rules to like be okay, because that's just like my default. But like you're figuring out the rules to excel in a lot of ways.
Right. Like I see the world through the lens of how can I excel.
Exactly. And then like for me, like, yeah, sure, you could throw me into a chaotic environment.
Yeah.
And I might excel in places that might be hard for you. But like most of the world, at least this part of the world, the way it is now, is rules. You know, so I feel like for you, like you could be put in a lot of different environments, and most of them are going to have like a lot of structure. And like for me, that grinds against my like almost like my nature. It's hard for me to adjust, even if they make sense. If they don't make sense to me, it's tough. But for you, I feel like you just find a way to like do it, and that's really useful.
Yeah, definitely pros and cons to both, but it's interesting when you take like your world and how you go about things, and then my world and how I go about things, and how polar opposite they are, and then you put them into one relationship. And
definitely been interesting. Yeah, but I feel like to me, like it makes us learn from each other. Like I feel like we've both learned a lot of those skills from like each other, and how we go about things. And then many times it's difficult to understand, which can cause issues sometimes. But like I think at the end of the day, that's like that big difference is one of the things I respect about you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
What do you think? Like, what are some examples, or like I don't know, some situations where just like the way we go about things that impacts our relationship?
The first thing that comes to mind is like when there's like an issue or something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Your response and my response is totally different.
Okay.
Like you're like, oh my God, what do we need to do? We need to get this in order. We need to make calls. We need to prepare this way.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, hey, stuff happens, man.
Like,
yeah. Whatever, dude. Like,
actually,
let's just do it this way, I guess. Like, no problem. And you're like, no, we can't do it that way. We need to figure out all the components and figure out what goes first and what goes second and what goes third.
I think because I just thrive on so much structure, I'm such a planner. So when it comes to things like for example, like vacations, like I want to make sure I have a plan, because I think it can be like a waste of money if you go there and like you don't get reservations to the restaurant you want to have. Yeah, there's just pros to that. It's like, making sure you actually get to go to the exhibit, which means buying tickets ahead of time, or like, making sure that you check their requirements to see if you need to bring a COVID mask or like whatever it is like that. Like definitely scheduling it out and planning. And then you're like very okay with like kind of showing up and like rolling with the punches. And it's like, oh, if we don't get reservations at the restaurant we want to go to, you're okay with that. And you're like, we'll just walk down the street and like stumble upon another one. And for me, it's like, but the restaurant we wanted to go to.
Well, I think our last vacation actually is a great example. So like we had a budget.
Yeah.
And the budget was very small. It was a modest budget. What was it, like $1,500 for both of us?
For Miami?
Yeah, for Miami. Yeah, it was like 15.
It was less. It was like 1,000.
We ended up less.
Oh.
But I think we started with like a $1,500 budget.
Oh, okay.
And which is like $750, right, for each of us.
Okay, maybe.
And like that's pretty tight for like, it wasn't that long. It was a couple days or whatever, like 4 days, right?
Maybe.
Something like that. So 3-4 days, something like that, 4 or 5 days. But like that's a tight budget.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For everything, like fly, hotel, all that stuff. And then we started going through it, and you're like, wait a minute, it's gonna be a little less. how about we make it as low as possible?
Yeah.
And you're like finding the deals and this, and then we get there, and you're making basically a spreadsheet of every single dollar we
Look,
spend.
I'm a spreadsheet
to make
girly,
it
okay?
as frugal as possible. Which to me, like, I would never do that on my own. I would never. But like at the end of the day, it was pretty cool to see, like, holy crap, like we got it in like less than
We got it
$1,000.
in $800. We did Miami for
$800.
4 days for $800,
Yeah,
and
that's
that includes
nuts.
flights, hotels, transportation, food, drinks, and
For
everything
both of us.
for both of us.
Which is nuts.
Nuts.
So like it's not like, you know, I wouldn't do it, but like it works. And like by the end of the trip, like I had my own
Yeah.
spreadsheet, and like I was doing mine too. So I was like, hey, let's do it. And it was a fun trip. It's not like we just sat in a hotel. Like we did a bunch of stuff. We went all over the place. We were exhausted every day.
Yeah.
So like I feel like, yeah, like that's one of those things. But then at the end of the trip, which is why I think is such a great example, what happened?
Oh my
We
gosh.
we got stuck in the airport
Yeah.
because our flight, like a bunch, I think multiple flights, right? Like totally canceled. And we had to sleep overnight in the airport.
Not planned. Not part of the
Not
spreadsheet.
planned, not in the spreadsheet. But like for me, it was like
I was, like,
hey,
twitching.
It is what it is. But like, yeah, she was freaking out a little bit. But hey, we ended up making like a blanket fort.
Yeah.
And like setting up this little like underneath a desk with the little tent with a blanket. And like we had our tablet, and like we were watching stuff, and it was a nice night. Like I mean, it wasn't the best sleep, but
Our backs.
it was fine. And we woke up the next morning, and we had the flight back, and we loved the trip. It was a great memory. So like, yeah, it was a little bit of a freak out in the moment. We were running to the airline desk, like dodging people, and you know, she was like, "Oh my God, what's gonna happen? Oh my God, this ruins everything." But like at the end of the day, like it was okay, and I knew it was gonna be okay, and like by the end, you know, it was gonna be okay too. So like I feel like both of our skills in that trip really came out.
Yeah.
And I like
that. No, I do like that. And I think it really, like, I do trust you when it comes to the more unpredicted, chaotic stuff. And because I'm such a planner, like, I make schedules and, like, you know, plan flights and coordinate things every single day for my job anyway. Like, I think you can trust me more when it comes to that. And then when, you know, poop, I don't want to curse, but when poop hits the ceiling? No, wait, the fan. Okay, something you guys will know.
I mean, if it hits the ceiling, it's pretty bad too, I gotta say.
I'm actually, something you guys should know about me is that I always have these things on the tip of my tongue, and then I mess it up. So you'll just be filling in the blanks for me. But yeah, when poop hits the fan.
And the ceiling.
And the ceiling. Yeah, like I know, like, I'm gonna be good because you're with me, and then like when you know there's gonna be like something that's super scheduled, I feel like you know.
I lean a little on you because I'm like, there's a lot of rules here. You help me out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works out, and I think that's I think in general, and I think kind of the purpose of the podcast from my perspective at least, like one of the big themes.
Yeah.
Is that it's like not everything has to like fit the way you think it will, and everything has some value to it if you're willing to look for it and embrace it. Yeah, and people and everything, and you can learn from something that's totally out of your perspective or completely different from what you know.
Yeah.
And become better for it.
Yeah, I actually am a lot more. I remember the beginning of our relationship, you would say like, you can't date yourself, and I feel like you would say that a lot because I was like honestly like nervous that we were so different from each other. But I don't know if someone like comment down below if you're in a relationship with someone who's very different from you or
very similar
and yeah, like what is that like? Because I think now, like being with you for so long, that like I wouldn't want to be with someone who's exactly like me, because like we really do support each other in that type of way.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has weaknesses, you know, and like if you're too similar, you got the same weaknesses. It's just double the weakness.
Yeah, like imagine like you were like me and we both were really good with planning, but then like
something
when
goes wrong,
neither of us could go with the flow, like what kind of situation that would be.
Yeah, no recourse.
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, maybe you both learn together.
Yeah.
You know, if you have the same weakness, you work on it at the same time. Maybe that builds, you know, understanding that way.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's good in everything, so you just gotta find it.
But Dominican and Indian and New York City raised and suburban raised and very sheltered life versus very free life versus two very different parenting styles. It's like that's been interesting, but that's part of like why we wanted to do the podcast, is to explore all of that, and then also explore how these things go together, like Churros and Chai. But like, I don't know, you talk
and also
about
new stuff too.
like new stuff. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I feel like in that same spirit, like a big thing that I definitely want to do is like try out things that are outside of both of our comfort zones, or if you could bring stuff to me and I could bring stuff to you that's outside of the comfort zone. And like I feel like there's so much value in that exploration. So like feel free to let us know about what makes you different, or stuff you want to learn about us, or stuff that you want us to try that you think we haven't, which would be cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And also I'm excited about Mind Melt.
Mind melt.
Can I actually loop back to something we were talking about 5 minutes ago real quick? The common phrases that I get wrong. You know, I learned embarrassingly recently that the saying "water under the bridge" for the longest time until like I was in college, I thought it's just water under the fridge.
What?
Yeah.
Under the fridge.
That actually makes more sense.
So, because you can't get it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's like if ice melts. You know, when ice melts and then goes under the fridge, it's like, it's whatever. It's water under the fridge.
You know what? That's how you get mold in your house. That's not okay. I understand, but it's not okay.
Okay, yeah. This show will also be teaching me the actual sayings.
Yeah. That's a good one. Water under the fridge.
Yeah.
We also have fingering it out.
Oh, yeah. We'll finger it out.
Amazing.
Okay.
Oh, God.
Well, on that note, on fingering it out.
We look forward to the next episode. We hope you do too.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Bye.
Oh yeah, we didn't tell them their name.
Their name?
Yeah.
We fans' names? Like
I named
the
you guys.
community name?
Yeah.
You have one.
I have one.
You never told me you picked one. I know you're thinking about it. Okay.
I thought we picked it together.
This is new for me too. So
Okay. Mango.
Mangoes? Oh, because it's Dominican and Indian.
Yeah, Dominican and Indian is like the one. Besides like spices, I feel like cumin maybe is a cultural for both. We can't call them like our cumins, which would be cute because like human, but
leave it down below.
Yeah.
Leave it down below. Mangoes, cumins. What do you think?
Yeah.
The community should be called. Not that we have one yet, but we will soon.
Yeah, that has
what should you be called?
That reflects a blend of like Indian and Dominican culture, maybe.
Just a blend of cultures, yeah, but especially ours. Yeah, it should be ours, right?
It should be ours. Yeah. But I think mangoes. What do you think about that?
Opinions down below.
Our little mangoes. Our little mangoes. I don't know. I think it sounds really cute.
Right,
okay, until next time. Bye, guys.